Hello, everyone. My name is Frank DeLuzio, and welcome to the first episode of Frank's Fiction. And today, as you see the title of this episode, we're gonna be going over Verity by Colleen Hoover, but I will not be going over this book alone. I have a very special guest, one of my best friends, Shayna Dubay. Hey, Shayna, how are
Hey,
you?
I'm excellent. I'm super excited.
I know you are, because
Thank you so much for having me.
no
Yay!
problem. We've been prepping before this. I can feel the excitement. I feel the positive radiating energy in the room. So
Yay!
I'm super excited for that.
Me too.
Did you know? So Colleen's new, I don't know when this is going to be published, but Colleen Hoover's new book, It Starts With Us, came out on the 18th of October, which is that just happened.
I'm going to have to get that.
Yeah, I still haven't. Have you read It Ends With Us?
No.
That's
actually,
the first
Verity was
one.
the first book I read by her.
Me too.
Oh, okay.
So it's the only one I've read so far.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about her. So I can't wait to read another one. Definitely got me hooked.
I'm excited. I've heard it's really good. I mean, I always hear her book. I feel like you either love her books or people just want to lie and say they hate it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I have become a Colleen Hoover fan. So I'm sorry to everyone who is trying not to fall into
We're
that
totally
stigma.
Unbiased, just so everyone knows. Just kidding. Totally biased.
We can be unbiased. We've been in the psychology field. We can be unbiased.
Yes. We will do our best.
Here's what's going to happen on this show. It's going to start with just some quick life updates if anyone really cares. I used to host a podcast called Let Me Be Frank with Frank Anthony, and that was like, people loved that. So I wanted to just incorporate a little bit of that before we get into the book review, which will start off as a spoiler-free review. And then we'll have like a little pause, a little commercial break for anyone that wants to read the books themselves that hasn't read the book. Then we're going to really get into it and go over some book questions and all that good stuff. So, Shayna, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, who wants to start with our our amazing life updates that we've had such a good week, right? Yay!
Yay! Yes.
It's been hell.
Well, it's been a trying week, but I think, I really like to come from the standpoint that difficult weeks are growth weeks, and it's been a growth week. And I've been really focusing a lot on, personal growth, but also relationship dynamics. And those things are really important to me and important to learn because the quality of your relationship is the quality of your life. I have a great relationship with you, and I want to have great relationships with other people too. So that has been my focus for the week. How about you?
Well, that's very well put, and I'm not very well put together for this. I just, for my week has been quite challenging itself. I think the lesson this week has been accountability. I've been getting into it with some people that I'm very close to. Well, one of the people at least I'm very close to, and the other one I wasn't as close, but it still is an unfortunate falling out, and it's kind of just like the consequences of our own actions. Actually, it's ironic with this book because I let's just say I can relate to Lowen a little bit considering her actions, which we'll get into later.
Yes.
And yeah, long story short, I made a mistake and I apologize for that. And I take accountability for that, my role in that. And we just have to, I think for me, it's hard to, I don't know. It's hard for me. I'll make a mistake and then I just automatically view myself as the villain because sometimes.
Well, I think accountability is something that's really important, and it's vastly underestimated in our society, the way things are. But I think if you see yourself as the villain, then what ends up happening is you're attempting to punish yourself for it.
Oh, totally.
When in reality, what you want to do is learn and grow from it. Because if you punish yourself, we feel really bad and ashamed, and those things are never good motivators. So I will work on accountability too. I think that's a really great skill to have, and not enough of us do.
I definitely agree with that. And we have good self-awareness too, which is really important. I feel like some people definitely lack that, unfortunately.
We both work on it really hard.
Yeah, we do.
Really hard. So, yeah, totally.
Let's get into the spoiler-free review. So, overall, And we're going to save star ratings for the very end. And we're also going to save at the very end what team we are on, if it's team letter, team manuscript, or if we have any other thoughts on
Woo!
that. But yeah, like generally, Shayna, like, do you like the book? Do you not like the book?
I liked it. I have to say I can read books that are kind of dark, but sometimes it's hard for me. I feel like it takes me over a little bit. So I know that I needed a break afterwards, but I felt like it was really twisty. I felt like I didn't really know what was going to happen. I really didn't know what the truth was. Um and all the characters were like really interesting and dynamic. So it definitely pulled me in. I definitely wanted to finish reading it. And I think, that's the sign of a good book right there, is just being able to
Yes.
really capture you and pull you in. And it definitely did that. So if that's one of your criteria for a good book, this will do it for sure. How I feel about the characters might be a different thing.
Oh, of course.
but overall I would say it's a pretty good book, and it's definitely twisty and dark.
So side note with that, I feel like sometimes if someone doesn't like a specific character, they automatically rate the book bad.
Oh yeah, I could see
And
that.
and
There
I don't do that personally.
Yeah. For me, I do think that there needs to be some likability. Like there has to be someone in the book that I'm rooting for. I feel like that about movies, any type of story that I have, there has to be like at least one person that I'm really rooting for. And I do feel like, and sometimes it changes throughout the book. It doesn't have to be the same person, but I do feel like she at least gives me someone to feel hopeful for, to root for, that to empathize and be compassionate with. So that was there for me, which is another check mark for
Mm.
me.
Well, see, and Verity's, which we'll get into too, Verity's story series follows the point of view of an antagonist, and I would enjoy that, even though that could be like a very unlikable character, because sometimes people root for the bad guy. Like, for example, and I know I'm probably gonna get crucified for this, but Scar is one of my favorite characters in The Lion King.
I mean, he's very complex. And, it's interesting because they started doing a lot of those, movies and episodes and like
Yes.
Disney movies and stuff from the villain's point of view and things like that.
Well,
And
Wicked with Elphaba.
yeah, yeah. And I think that, the interesting thing about villains is they're dynamic characters. They have intense stories, and those things, they're very interesting. And it doesn't, and if you read a lot or you watch a lot of movies or whatever, you always looking for like a dynamic person, and the villain is definitely dynamic, and you can't have a hero without a villain. So it's really interesting to see it, and I think it gives a really interesting point that once you understand someone's story, you can understand why they do the things that they do.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Like real life, essentially.
Absolutely. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story. Even a villain, even people who make really poor decisions, even if they make them on purpose, like they have a story and they have a reason. It doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want
No,
to, but I do find it interesting to see. It creates a real level of humanness that I like.
I agree with
Mm.
that. I probably should mention what this book is even about. Some people are probably like, what
Yes.
is this even? Like, what are they
Tell
rambling
me, Frank.
about? So, Lowen is a struggling writer who's offered a job of a lifetime. She has to finish the rest of this book series for the famous author Verity Crawford, who is injured. But Lowen gets distracted by an unfinished autobiography of Verity's that is bone chilling to say the least.
Definitely.
Yes, which,
Definitely.
and personally for me, this book, I wasn't getting the hype at first. Like I was reading it. I read a lot of thriller novels, and I hadn't
Mhm.
read Colleen Hoover yet until this book. And this is the only one I have so far, but I will promise that It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us will most likely be reviewed on this podcast as well, because I really did enjoy Verity and I could see more of her work
Yeah.
entering. So Colleen Hoover, if you ever listen to this, shout out the podcast, please, and
Right?
thank you. That would be amazing. Get you on someday. That would be amazing.
Woohoo! I'm here for that.
Let's do it. We're only episode 1, and I already want the
Yes.
big bucks.
Listen, shoot for the stars.
Of course, you have to in this world.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe because I read so many thrillers, like I was like, okay, I was like, I like the story and stuff, but like I just didn't. I think it's because so many people talk this book up. So many. I mean, the reviews I think are like over 1 million just on Goodreads. And that's unheard
Wow.
of for
Yeah.
there's a lot. I mean, that's just unheard of for a book usually. Like her books really, even with It Starts With Us, I was already starting to see like, because it came out just the other day and there's over 1,000 reviews already
Wow.
on it.
Yeah.
Like it's, big following now. So I think people talked it up so much that I'm like, is this gonna be it? Like, is it gonna like how much is this really gonna like bend me and like twist me into a pretzel or whatever? And it definitely does. It's definitely a recommended book for sure. Yeah, it definitely there's a lot of like holy cow moments as you go
Totally.
on.
Totally. I always know it's good if I go, "What?" or my mouth drops open somewhere, and and that definitely happened a few times in this book. So, that was good for me.
Yeah. Um who was like did you have a favorite character? Did you have a least favorite? We can go more in depth with them on
Yeah,
the
I
other
mean,
half, but
I feel like Colleen really takes you on a journey where you like kind of really like a character and you're rooting for them, and then you find out things about them that you're like, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about that now."
yep.
And so I think for me all of the characters kind of did that. And then at the end you're just like you don't know really where to be because in reality, and I think maybe this is, reflective of life in itself, like everybody is so dynamic that not one story or one thing encompasses that entire person, that they are all of these things together, and I mean it's kind of like life. It's kind
Yeah.
of like how people really are. They're complex. You kind of want to root for
Well, this is a
Verity.
tough one,
You
yeah.
kind of like I kind of wanted to root for Lowen in the beginning. But then, some of the stuff that she does and the choices that she makes, I'm really going like, where are your morals?
I sympathize a I have to empathize a little bit with her just because unfortunately I've made some similar choices, but weirdly enough, Verity was probably actually my favorite character, and I didn't think she
Really?
was going
Why?
to be. She's
Yeah.
very complex,
Very.
and which obviously we
Mm-hmm.
can't spoil too much right in this
Yeah.
part, but it's just so complex, and I love a good
Mhm.
complex yet realistic character.
Yes.
And I feel like her struggle, that's another thing too. I guess I think when a character is relatable to you in a sense, like her supposed obsession, like I have felt that personally in a
Yeah.
relationship. I mean,
I
not to
get
maybe
that.
not to the exact like note of it,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I get like I get that feeling. I get the struggle
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and just like without giving away much, I just think she's really complex
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you look at her.
Yeah, I definitely could see myself reflected back in each of the characters in different ways, which I think is a really good sign of good writing,
Yeah.
which is great for me. I also like I really rooted for Jeremy a lot too, to be
Yes.
honest. And then, then you like learn more things and you're like, "Oh." So you're kind of like it really does take you on a journey, and you can't really pick and choose people. You can't pick and choose the parts of people that you want to love and get rid of the parts that you don't. And I think that in the end, these people, even though they did things that I don't know are really that accurate or that truthful to like what people would really do,
Yeah.
I think it shows a broader story of kind of the dynamics of human beings and our feelings and our actions and what they do to us and our relationships.
And then yeah, it's so hard to go over so like plot and stuff, it's so hard to go over that without because you can't really give away
Yeah.
much with that, especially in this book. But I thought it was cohesive and it hits you where it hurts for sure.
It wasn't hard to follow. You definitely
No.
got involved in the story. Like you really wanted to know what was happening. It was a good plot.
Yeah, the plot mixed with the writing style because I hadn't read her stuff yet, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how writing style is somewhat important
Mm-hmm.
to me. Like I like beautiful language, but also like it needs to, at least with a thrower, it needs to have the
Mm-hmm.
pace as well, which is why the beginning at first I almost got a little nervous. I didn't know I didn't know her pace, like how she does things. And now that I kind of got a little taste of it, it tastes pretty good.
I don't feel like it was quite as intense, but it reminded me of Gillian Flynn's novels.
Mm,
Um, and hers were like really, really dark and very much sucked you in. And I think that, this particular one from Colleen Hoover, I'm not sure what the other ones are like at this point,
yeah.
but it really kind of did a similar thing where it sucked you in. You really wanted to figure it out, but it is dark. It definitely, for me anyway. So like afterwards, I definitely have to read some lighter things, but it definitely sucked me in. It did remind me a bit about how I felt about Gillian Flynn.
If you come back, maybe we'll do like a cute little romance novel or
Oh,
something.
right?
We can talk all about like the main
Yeah.
relationship and
Well, I do not discriminate in types of books. I read from like pretty much every section. So I'm here for it.
yeah. I try to. My favorites are thriller, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw in like some romance or comedy type stuff. It's kind of like my movie choices too, actually, the more I think
We
about
might
it.
have to do one for No Exit.
Oh, can we? I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch an idea.
Okay.
So I'll have to revisit that book, but we should watch the movie too. That's
Ooh,
out,
and we
and
could
then we
do
can
like a double
compare.
review.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can really like share our thoughts on that. See if
That
it's
book
because
was
I'm
intense.
not sure if it's gonna be similar or not, or if they're gonna change
I
things
hope
in the
they do a
movie.
good job. I know you can't put everything in a movie, but like at least capture the essence of it and keep the plot points consistent. That's like my one
Yes.
thing. Like do those or two things. Do those two things and I will feel decent about the
No, and
movie.
then yeah, I know, and then sometimes they'll just completely take out like such an important piece
Oh
of the
my
story,
gosh,
and
I
it's like
hate
don't
that.
like I get. I mean, yeah,
Can
I
we
get.
say Harry Potter the 8th movie? Oh, don't get me started. I can't. I
No,
can't.
because that's gonna lead to something else. It's
Oh
gonna
my
lead to
god,
someone
right?
else, and
Okay,
you're gonna
we're
be
gonna
like,
get back on it.
ah!
Okay,
So
but
we can't.
anybody out there, you know what I'm talking about if you're a Harry Potter fan. I'm just saying, we all know.
We
We
all
all know.
know. I don't know, but
Yes.
I did not read the books
And no commentary
or
on
all the books.
JK.
That no. We're not going.
Leaving her
We're
out
not.
of that.
Yep. We're not going there. We're not going there. I'm not getting
No.
sued. I'm not getting sued.
Okay.
We're not getting sued.
No.
No.
We all know.
I think we could stop it there when it comes to spoiler free, because I really want to get into like the meat of it. I know a lot of people want to hear that part. So this is the part where if you haven't read the book yet and you want to before you hear spoilers, like this is your little disclaimer warning to pause here. And I'll have like a quick little commercial break thing, pause as well. But just like this is the part where to stop listening to this, so we don't spoil anything for you. And if you don't care, then of course keep listening on. If you've read the book, then let's go on this ride. And we are back. So where do we okay, so for the spoiler free, where do we even start? Do you want to like start in certain characters, or do you want to mention like certain plot points that really stuck to you? Or
I don't have a preference. I think that it was an interesting book. I guess what I would say is I'm curious about how you feel about the different characters and like their journey. If you want to like talk about a specific character or like
we
a
can go through,
specific
yeah.
thing for that character,
Yeah,
like for
things
me.
might come up too, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Well, we can start with Lowen. Lowen's technically our main character.
Yes.
Or
I
yeah,
would say.
technically, because
Yeah.
Verity kind of shares the spotlight.
Yeah,
I
she's
think.
kind of our narrator. So you had said before that you kind of identify with Lowen a little bit, or that you can empathize with her. What did you mean by that?
Well, okay, so it's gonna make me look a certain way, but we're here, we're honest. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, Lowen exhibits some hoish behavior in a sense, because Jeremy is married to Verity, and she's like almost like I don't care in a sense. Like I'm getting attracted to him. I'm gonna hook up with him.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? Like I like she doesn't feel guilty about that, right?
I mean, I don't see really anything wrong with actually doing that. I just think because for what we know, Verity is totally incapacitated
Yes.
and totally out. So they're married technically, but it's really hard to have a marriage with somebody who is like basically a vegetable.
And in this book too, when we go through like in the manuscript, Verity is talking so much about the physical part of their relationship. And now if she's incapacitated, which spoiler alert, she's really not.
Right.
Which like what? Like you're not.
Well, I do think it's odd. I think Lowen is an odd character because even if he's attractive and he seems like the good dad and he's so dedicated to Verity, like he paints this really pretty picture of who he is. And
I thought he was good at that.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Like even at the beginning, like he was very like gentlemanlike with like.
And so I can see her being attracted to that and like being around that space. It is weird a little bit to get to the point where you're like gonna have sex with him in the house where Verity is, and like weirdly like
I can't speak much on that. I can't judge
scenes. I don't know.
Well, no,
like that seemed like weirdly obsessive in an odd way.
In my opinion, which I'm probably calling myself out a little bit, Lowen has poor boundaries, in my opinion. So. I mean, Corey is her ex, but also her agent, right? Or like public, like she works with Corey. So like that's a poor with that. So I mean, it's not the best.
Well, it's interesting because he like fell in love with her as a writer, but not really like who she portrayed herself as, or like the identity that she had as a person. And so Corey was like, I love her writing, really, not her. And I think that Jeremy was really kind to her, but it makes you kind of wonder about like the internal struggle of Lowen, of like, does she feel so bad about herself that anyone giving her like some attention or just regular human decency is enough for her to feel that attachment? It makes me think about like attachment disorders, and creating like anxious attachment is like you create an attachment quickly to someone. And I do think that she did that rather quickly, although he didn't really seem to stop it.
Well, it was 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they were together.
So that's not a lot of time
in the gay world. That's really that's perfect. Well, you're living together in 2 weeks.
Lesbian world, second date's move-in day, man. So you know what I mean. But this is heterosexual, so like.
So I mean, they should be taking more time.
Yeah, it did seem really fast, and sort of escalated, and I kind of wonder what Jeremy's thought process was. Like, why was he so interested in her and willing to sort of pursue this much closer, intimate relationship with Lowen?
Well, he read her writing as well, and in a sense, it was kind of like, did he fall in love with her? Right? Like, did he kind of fall in that trap, like Corey?
You gotta wonder a little bit,
like, because they really don't. They don't know each other.
I think it's a really common theme in this book, how much writing and the persona that you portray in writing impacts how you feel about this person in real life. Because definitely that was incorporated in the space around Verity, and like who she was in real life versus who she was in her writing, versus who she was when other people were looking at her. Like, we have all these different personas. And sometimes those things, like, we fall in love with the persona, but like, who's the real person? You don't know, and are they all that person? Like, is Lowen the person that wrote that book? Like, is she that person that she portrays? And also this like very insecure, seemingly anxious attached, seemingly like shameful, insecure person? Maybe she's both things. And it's really interesting to try to kind of figure that out. But I do find it interesting that Jeremy was like, okay, let's do this. Dude, like, it's just, I don't know.
I mean, my wife's upstairs. Like, it was a perfect idea. And then our son Crew has a knife and stabs himself in the mouth.
Crew. I am like,
we're gonna go to Crew, I guess.
Yes. Crew needs to be taken to a child psychologist.
Oh, totally.
Because
he needs
he
help.
has some
Hashtag help
serious
for Crew.
issues. If you are 5 years old, right? Help for Crew.
Help for Crew.
If you are 5 years old and you have those kinds of issues, like hiding knives, putting knives in your mouth, I mean, it does give you some indication of potentially the home that he grew up in. Because when you're 5 years old, you're not acting of your own volition. You're living in your subconscious mind. And this kid is like doing some cuckoo stuff.
And that's the thing. It was hard to believe what was going on when he was like, I talked to mommy, like referring to Verity. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, she can't talk.
Yes.
So it's like you didn't know if like that was like just a child's
Yes.
imagination or if she was actually talking to him, and she was actually talking to him.
Yes. She was, and
Essentially.
I think, from Verity's perspective, she probably felt it was safe because even if he were to say something about it, everyone would think, oh, he's just talking to her.
Yeah.
She's not talking back. He's just he has an active imagination. Do you know what I mean?
Which that was smart. It was smart that he wasn't one of those kids that was like, no, mommy is this way or whatever, like like a snitch.
Yeah. I imagine it probably was difficult for Verity too, like trying to, it makes me feel a little compassionate. Can you imagine being like having to be totally silent and vacant 99% of the time, and the only time you get to like talk or really interact with anyone or have any type of real human connection, which is important to all of us, is with your 5-year-old son when you're alone because no one else can see. So she maybe even made that choice out of necessity, just because, none of us are meant to be hermits. And so she just needed to have that interaction. So I don't blame her for that at all. Certainly.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if you can remember, because what's impressive to me is like how long she had to fake this. Do you remember?
It was a while.
It was like a long, yeah, like it was like an Oscar-worthy act.
I don't think it didn't get to the years, right? I think it was.
I don't think
it.
I thought it was at least a
many
few months. Yeah,
right? Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is to act this way. That's crazy.
Yeah, Crew and Verity's relationship is definitely interesting, for sure, and it makes me think of kind of what was Verity's relationship with her girls.
I was just thinking that. So Verity has Chasten and Harper. They were twins, correct?
Yes.
And looking at each of the three, very, very different, or maybe not much different.
I mean, honestly, I just think that, Crew's personality is very telling of the type of household that they grew up in and kind of the things that happened. And I also think that, thinking of Verity, when you have to live part of your life in the mind or like pushing yourself into that dark place in your mind of like writing from a villain or an antagonist perspective, and especially, doing that in quotes writing assignment from that perspective of like, that's horrifying, thinking of writing those things. So those things, it impacts you. And so you got to wonder a little bit about what the dynamics were in that household between the kids and Jeremy and Verity, and what that looked like for those girls who both ended up dead.
So a part that really stuck with me?
What?
In the book was during the manuscript, Verity talks about killing Harper. Yeah. And her hatred for Harper.
Yes.
That writing of it really, I don't know if it was just the creepiness of it or just like how well Colleen Hoover wrote it, but oh my God.
It was really dark.
It was.
And like really intense. Why do you think, what's your assessment of why Verity hated Harper so much?
That's a really good question that I honestly didn't think much
about. Because she was the one, she had attempted to abort the babies she didn't know there was two, I don't think, at that time.
I thought she did.
Did she?
I thought she didn't like both of them at first. And yeah,
but she attempted to abort them, and then remember, like, Harper had that thing on her face so they could always tell them apart. Like, it was like a little scar or a...
Well, Chasten did.
Oh, Chasten
She had the scar, yeah. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I almost killed her because I love her so much. Like, it was like a weird turn.
So I kind of wonder what made Verity hate her so much.
Well, at least according to the manuscript, I thought it was like, I honestly thought, which is kind of fucked up when you think about it, I thought it was because of her Asperger's and how it made, because she wasn't reacting like a typical child, like she was more neurotypical or neurodivergent. I mean, not neurotypical.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that manuscript Verity. I mean, she really had so much hatred towards Harper, but I know that part of the hatred came up because she thought that Harper killed Chasten.
Yes, but there was some hatred before that too.
Yeah, it seems like she really just didn't like Harper, and that was like one of the arguing points between Verity and Jeremy over and over again, was like how Jeremy would like say that Verity only liked Chasten more than Harper, and how Jeremy was really close with Harper. So of course it also makes you kind of wonder a little bit, if manuscript Verity was really jealous of Jeremy giving any attention to someone else, even her own daughter.
Oh, she totally was.
Yeah.
She had to be number one.
Yeah. And it's really like, it makes sense. And the interesting thing too is, kind of when I look at Lowen in comparison to Verity, I think of Lowen as having, some anxious attachment issues and creating this attachment to Jeremy really quickly. And the manuscript Verity also seemed to be very attached to Jeremy very quickly. She talks about like love at first sight, and like how she went to that party like literally to just attract a guy to sleep with or whatever, and she ends up like falling in love with him, but like becoming totally obsessed. So it's interesting that Jeremy is sort of the obsession point for two different women.
I'm not like super surprised by that either, because I throughout reading it the whole time, Jeremy, I never really knew how to feel about him. Like, I wanted to believe he's a good guy, and which, speaking of now, the last added chapter of the book, should we talk about that now, or should we wait for like after the questions?
I think we could do that. Yeah, I think we do the questions first.
Okay,
probably.
And then
just
we'll get
I think
into
earlier.
Yeah, we could talk about that because we literally just read what that was. Which, holy cow!
Yeah, that really puts a whole new spin on things.
Oh, it does, especially Mr. Jeremy.
Yeah, right. I kind of wonder a little bit what Colleen Hoover was thinking. Kind of making this new epilogue. And I wonder if it's because people's focuses were really much more on, Verity, whether the manuscript or the letter was real, and like Lowen and Verity back and forth, and not a lot of attention was put on Jeremy. So I'm kind of wondering if she did that to be like, hey, pay attention to this guy. Or if it's a clue as to which Verity is the real Verity.
True. And with that last chapter too, I have a question I just thought of. Hopefully I'll remember it for the end when we go there. But okay, so we have some book review questions. Like, if we were like an official book club, I found these on. So okay, first one. So Lowen feels an immediate kinship with Jeremy when he helps her on the street. And the quote that she says is, "Most people come to New York to be discovered. The rest of us come to hide." So what ran through your mind when you read this? Should we do like one question at a time, or should I say them all?
Yeah, just say it.
Okay, so what ran through your mind when you read this? Did you think in this moment that Jeremy had something to hide? What ultimately was Jeremy's biggest secret?
You want me to answer first?
I mean, at least for the first part of that, I really, not much ran through my mind at the beginning when I first read it. Thinking back on it now, that's always, I don't know, it's always interesting. Yeah, like, if I were to read this book again, I bet there'd be little things I'd catch on, or be absolutely. Like, especially with Jeremy, that it would be like, what's up with you?
So I think that it really establishes Lowen's character at this point, because you kind of see her as this like down on her luck person. You know, she's sort of, I don't know if you would call her the hero of the book, but definitely like presented as this sort of forsaken person who's trying to hide something. She comes to a big city so that she can just blend in and kind of lose herself.
And she lost her mom.
Yeah, she lost her mom, and
it,
so she doesn't have like a support system in the same way. And so she's just trying to not be seen. And, you know, Jeremy clearly has secrets as well. And I just think she probably responded, you know, that kinship piece. I think she just responded to almost being sort of rescued in a way, or sort of saved from this really kind of really traumatic experience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting way to introduce your characters. Certainly. I don't think I'd be able to go to a meeting after that. I'd be like traumatized. I'd be like, you gotta take me to the psych unit.
No, serious. And then right? And then coincidentally to like run into each other at the meeting.
Yeah, right, to literally be meeting each other.
Yeah.
Do you think that Jeremy knew it was her?
I was going to touch on that, because that kind of touches into, do you think Jeremy had something to hide? And I think he did. And that kind of ties into knowing her, just because, what was it? He had said that like Verity read her books, but he was the one that really did.
Yes, so he lied from the beginning.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, he was hiding that. He could, of course he could be hiding more. Men are liars.
I mean, we all are. So let's be honest.
I know.
I mean, we all lie.
Let me be frank, we're liars.
Exactly. Everyone's a liar. It's okay. We all know. You know, there's tons of reasons to lie, but certainly he was hiding a piece of that. And, you know, maybe it was just as simple as he didn't want to be vulnerable in front of her. So maybe. It literally could just be like, I'm going to put this on my wife. I don't want anyone to think it's my doing, even though he clearly orchestrated and picked her.
Yeah,
which is also interesting.
Well, that's why the biggest secret, if I had to say he had one, is I definitely think he planned on being intimate with her, and like,
really,
I think so.
Interesting.
And the more I just think about, see, that last chapter, that added chapter stuck in my head too now, and it just adds even more to everything. Just like this, maybe because I've met guys like Jeremy in the gay community, where it just seems like they put any of their partners through like a similar pattern.
That's interesting.
In a sense.
Well, I also think it's interesting too, because, you know, Colleen Hoover makes a point of mentioning how, you know, we talked a little bit before about Corey and Lowen's relationship, and how Corey like fell in love with the writer piece.
Yep.
And so that was Jeremy's introduction to Lowen. So it certainly could be that, you know, the reason he wanted to get her into that space is because he had really some sort of attachment or something that drew him into that space too. So, and he didn't want her to know to begin with, certainly.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of Corey,
yeah,
I forgot the next question. Corey and Lowen's relationship ended in part because he fell in love with the female protagonist of her first novel, which we did touch on this a little bit. He assumed her character's personality would closely match her own. After learning that Jeremy was the one to read Lowen's book, do you believe he succumbed to the same affliction initially? Why or why not? And we did just touch on this a couple of times.
I definitely think it's possible.
Yeah,
I really
think so.
do.
It kind of makes me wonder, like, what Lowen's protagonist was like, I guess, because in a sense, like, Corey was like, I'm assuming Corey was like, oh, Lowen really wasn't this girl. And then it makes me kind of wonder, like, well, then why did Jeremy supposedly fall for her?
So, I mean, I guess if I had to think about it from, like a psych standpoint or a relationship dynamic standpoint, you know, what I would think is that, you know, men are, especially masculine men, and I think we could probably safely say that both Jeremy and Corey were definitely masculine men, that they are going to be attracted to really female people, that feminine energy. And so my guess is that the protagonist in her book was probably like a powerful feminine character, but that was really owned her own feminine energy, because that's really attractive to masculines. So if you see, Corey saying, I thought she was going to be more like that, and not this sort of like, lowly, insecure person, that leads me to believe that her protagonist is probably quite confident, probably quite sensual, maybe sexual, and that she was probably very feminine and attracted, these sort of masculine things of like, I kind of want to bring this in there and meet the person that wrote this book, because she's probably going to be like that person. And then we're sort of disappointed. Although, was Jeremy disappointed? Because he...
Well, that's what I was gonna mention. Lowen came off as being sexual with him, or like pleasing him.
Yes.
But then I start thinking about how much of that, like maybe with Corey it wasn't like that, but like Verity's autobiography almost motivated her
absolutely
to push her to be like better than her.
Because I think that maybe that's not what Lowen's character was like, but being influenced by Verity's writing, right? And you have all these characters influenced by these different writings.
Yeah.
And I think Lowen was influenced by that writing because, we have that scene where they're having sex and Lowen bites the headboard in like the exact same place that Verity bit the headboard. I mean, she literally was embodying Verity. And the Verity in the manuscript was a very sexy, beautiful, attractive woman. And I think Lowen was attempting to step into that space, probably to try to be attractive to Jeremy. So, was he falling in love with Verity again, but just in a different form that was physically available to him?
I would say I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. In her autobiography, Verity says she fell in love with Jeremy at first sight, although she clarifies that it, quote, isn't really love at first sight until you've been with the person long enough for it to become love at first sight. Did this idea resonate with you? Why or why not?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because can you say that something is love at first sight if you aren't with that person long enough to understand if it's love? I think that's probably true. Because if it doesn't develop into anything, is it love? I don't know. I mean, could you love someone that... I guess you could look at someone and feel like you love them. Love is such a complex idea that it's hard to say. I mean, most people say that you can lust at first sight.
Well,
you can have an attraction. But there are people out there who say, like, when someone walks into the room and they see them for the first time, they just know that that person is meant to be in their life. But does it need to be confirmed with a further relationship? I mean, I'd say probably.
I think so. I get the whole idea of love at first sight, but then at the same time, at least thinking of Verity and Jeremy specifically, personally, and maybe I'm wrong, I sensed some limerence. In a sense.
What do you mean?
And just in the sense that, like, she was so... I don't know how much of that was really true love. Like, she was so obsessed with him.
Honestly, it's
autobiography-wise.
Right. It's really hard to know because... the manuscript Verity was not a nice person. I mean, She really was like really incredibly narcissistic. And definitely for her own gains. She clearly had like some serious pathology, which was the point if the manuscript was in fact a writing exercise, which we don't know. But I think, because in the manuscript, Verity says that she went there specifically to like pick up a guy to have sex with. Like that was the entire point. And she just happened to find him there. But, it didn't seem like that's what she was looking for. But she found a connection that I think she was not expecting. Maybe.
Yeah. And I just think that happens. I think that was...
Letter Verity was a different person, a very different persona, a different character. But you don't get to see that, till the end or till much further in.
Now that I think about it, because remember Lowen asked Jeremy like how they first met,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember, he described obviously similar things because in a way, like, it had to like kind of go with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make me think, like, I don't know, because yeah, both the manuscript and Jeremy's version, like, they both did go, like, right, they both went in a limo that they weren't supposed to be. Like, I thought that was in both.
It seemed like it was pretty accurate to the
Sounded close
to the story. I think what we don't know is, the intention, Verity's intention, because Jeremy's story about how they met, has, I think, the same details that Verity's manuscript had, but we don't get to see the internal workings of Verity.
True.
Because Jeremy wouldn't have any way of knowing.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yep. Just before Lowen finishes reading Verity's autobiography, she wonders if she has a moral obligation to share the pages with Jeremy. In your opinion, at that moment in time in the story, do you believe it was right for Lowen not to share her findings? What would you have done if you had been in Lowen's situation?
Oh God, that's a really...
It's hard because we know what happened afterwards, but if we didn't know that...
I think it's a really hard question because we all have a different idea of our own morals. Like, we all have a moral compass. Yes. But for me as a person, when I am looking at telling people things, the truth is something that's really important to understand and to know. But I also think that not all truths need to come to light. Because if it's going to hurt someone and not do any good, maybe it doesn't need to. I don't know. I
need to work on that.
I mean, I can see it both ways. I really can. Yeah. Because I can see Lowen saying, I don't want to do this to Jeremy. It's just going to cause him more pain to know this. Like, what good would have come from her giving it to Jeremy at that particular point? I don't know that any good would have really come from it. But I also can think to myself, if I was Jeremy or if I was in that place, I would want to know.
Yeah.
If my wife that I am caring for killed my kids.
Yeah.
Killed my kid.
I know. And that's the thing. I definitely understand what you're saying. I know for me in that moment, I would have shared it.
You would have.
I would have.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
And I just look at what I've been going through in real life. And obviously, like, there's, with sharing this, there's obviously like a consequence to doing that, or like there's an aftermath that you have to deal with, because now it's like, now you brought it into existence. It's into the real world. But I think you made a really good point that makes me second guess it when it comes to, like, if it's just going to hurt them even more. Like, it's a really good thing to think about, or at least consider before doing.
Yeah, I really think that that's important, because sometimes you get information that comes to you and you have to make a decision about whether or not you're going to get involved, whether or not you're going to divulge the information, and whether or not that's going to do any good. And it kind of comes back to me, like, when I decide, who do I want to be as a person? And, it's interesting because Lowen is this outside person. She's not involved in their relationship. She doesn't know them outside of this manuscript and these couple of weeks she spends in their house. And so would she make the decision to essentially destroy an entire family? At that point, had Verity been healed and back to normal and, they have their family, at that point, would it be a different decision? I mean, maybe it would have been. But at that point, what good could have come from that space? So I don't know. I don't know that I would have given it to him without good reason. And I don't think at that point I would have had good enough reason. Yeah. I kind of understand why she eventually gave it to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really think it's a, like, that kind of old thing of, like, when you say something, is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it gonna, do good? And I think that's really important to know. It is, in Lowen's defense, though, that is a lot to take on.
Yeah.
It's a lot to know and take on, and to be like, holy crap, I just came in here to do this job, and now I see this like huge thing, like this is nuts. So I kind of see her point too, like I shouldn't have to take this on.
Yeah.
So I kind of see both sides. It's
No,
interesting that you would tell though. Like I can see it. I could see that.
I don't know. I think with other things in life, that's just how I've been. Like if I'm close to the person, if I'm really close to the person, I just would want to go to them for that. But I definitely get what you're saying too. And it's probably something I need to work on in my real life and maybe start doing a little bit. But I've also been that person too in Lowen's situation where I waited with the information, which made it even worse. And in this case, it made it worse in a sense because of the outcome of what happened.
I think too, like if you're looking at Verity and Lowen, like the difficulty is that as far as Lowen knows, like Verity doesn't have the ability to defend herself.
True.
Yeah. And in reality, I mean, she does leave the letter, but we never talk to her. Like we never get, Lowen doesn't take the opportunity, to talk to her. By the time, she realizes that Verity is faking, by the time she gets to that point, like she's already made up her mind that Verity is like a terrible person.
Yeah.
Which like really makes sense because it's like, it's listed as an autobiography. I do feel like it would be more appropriate for Verity to be able to try to explain herself before making something, because you don't know these people, you don't know them. It's not like, I mean, you might like Jeremy and everything but you don't really know them.
No,
you've hardly known them for any time, so you're making a lot of assumptions based on what's happening. I think that I would need more information before I would bring it forward.
That makes sense. And speaking of like the truth and everything, the next question, Verity's name is derived from the Latin word, is it veritas?
Yeah.
That's how you say it.
In vino veritas.
Meaning truth. Lowen, on the other hand, is derived from the Middle High German lu, meaning lion, a name associated with bravery. Do you think the author was being ironic in her choice of names here, or do you think each woman lived up to her name's expectations?
What do you think?
I mean, well, I definitely think of Lowen with lion. I mean, I don't think she was... Maybe at the beginning, I could see it being ironic, but then at the same time, like, Lowen was kind of predatory. Like, she attacked.
Yeah.
Like, she went for Jeremy. She calls Verity a cunt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Matt,
I didn't think of that.
Like, she's not, like, this meek person, that we... Like, she starts off very, like, shy and, like, and wanting, like, a pen name. Like, she doesn't want her name associated. Even though, like, if it was me working with, like... I don't know, if I was writing for like Stephen King, like I'd want my name on that to finish a series of his. He's a big author. Like to have a pen name still, like that was interesting and stuff at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then I just feel like her actions as they were going on, I think definitely developed.
So you feel like she sort of became her namesake in a way, like as the story developed.
I think so.
Yeah.
But then also to touch on this too, which we haven't actually mentioned this at all. In the book too, Lowen has issues with sleepwalking, and that was like an interesting concept because we were talking off recording that like it kind of played in the story, but it really didn't as much as we thought it was going to.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like your thought. Like I thought more was going to happen with that. There was other theories I thought that were going to happen with this book too. In general, like for example, I thought this whole story was like the story Lowen was writing. I thought that was going to be...
That would have been an interesting twist.
Because we never know what that story was, the rest of it.
No, and like, did she ever write the books? I think she
finished one, I think, and then she still had to do the others or something. Really she needed more time, I think, for the others.
Yeah, and it doesn't, that doesn't really get addressed. I find it interesting because I mean the name Verity, I knew like as soon as I heard it.
Yes, I remember you saying.
We were talking about that really coming from the word truth, and I find it really interesting. Like because I mean it's very specific, which is like what is Verity's truth? What is the truth about Verity?
Exactly.
But I also think it's more broadly like, what's the truth about each of the characters? So, because Verity is interesting because she's almost like a main character and not at the same time. She's like a main character that doesn't get a voice in the actual book itself. So it's like the truth itself doesn't get to speak. It's just all these sort of outside perspectives on what the truth is.
Well, in this book,
but the truth is not really revealed.
Well, yeah, in the book, she has like 1 or 2 lines.
Yes.
When she finally admits.
Which is really interesting take on it. And for Lowen, the thing about Lowen is I do think that she started out sort of very dejected and meek and broken and not really like a lion at all. So I suppose it did seem a bit ironic to begin with, but she definitely found her voice. She found her power. It's almost like she created a new purpose for herself. And part of that, I believe, came from embodying Verity, which is interesting because if you think it's embodying the truth, right? And so she's embodying what she believes is the truth about this person, and also attempting to take her place.
That's true. I also, Lowen is, all the characters are interesting, but then there's just a lot that happened before this book even starts, with like Lowen's past, with the sleepwalking and her mom and things there that we don't know really a lot about. So it makes me wonder like who Lowen even was. And then at the same time, you're like thinking too at that beginning quote that we said in the first question that she's one of those people technically that was trying to hide. Like, I don't know. It just makes me think like,
and lions don't hide, right?
No.
So like when you think about a lion, you think about them being up and brave and roaring. It's like, oh my god, it's like a Harry Potter Gryffindor.
I was gonna say, the lion sleeps tonight.
Yeah, but it's like it's really in reality like. Was that lion piece like a sort of a dormant piece of her and she needed this experience to bring it out? Certainly.
Or are we just really reading into this?
Yeah.
And that was just a name.
Well, it could be either. I don't think that Verity was just a name.
No.
The Lowen piece, that is interesting only because it's an odd name.
Yeah. And calling Hoover's writing does seem very intricate and like well thought out, so I could see that being a thing.
I agree.
But
what does Jeremy mean? To look
asshole.
That up.
No.
Right? Crazy. Just kidding.
But so here's what people have been waiting to hear about, at least one of the things. After finishing the novel, which I guess I'll start because
you start.
I found your thought process more interesting with it. So, well, at least like, anyway. After finishing the novel, are you team manuscript or team letter? Whose truth was the lie? And my initial thought was that that I'm team letter. And now this is also considering before the last chapter too, which we could talk about if our opinions changed after that. But because when I read antagonistic journaling in the letter, my heart sank, because as a writer, I've done that exercise where, so essentially like the letter's claiming that the manuscript writing was all like an exercise and none of it was true. And I don't know, when I read that, I could believe that. However, that manuscript writing was so well written at the same time, and just like, I don't know, it's hard to like, it was easy to believe that I could see why that writing was easy to believe as truth. And then at the same time, it's so horrific that I'm like, that's gotta be fiction. In a sense, because like to just feel that way and to be able to write all that out in that sense. But so initially that was my thought process, where the letter did seem genuine, but then it's tough too because, we're thrown this letter right at the end of the book, where the manuscript, it's like a stew the whole time through. And it's like, I think that was obviously intentional, and then, you have Lowen's feelings on it. Like, she thinks so low of Verity, it's easy to, like, go along with your protagonist of the book. But what you explain that theory, I definitely agree with that, which was...
Well, I mean, I guess I would first say that if I had to pick, I'd say I'm also team letter.
Okay.
But I guess my point is that I don't think that there is a point that either one could be true. Mm-hmm. That there's enough supportive evidence that Colleen gives us that makes both the manuscript and the letter totally plausible. Because I think you can argue it both ways, and many people have. And there's some holes you can dig into it and different things like that. But what I really believe is that the entire point is to figure out who you are as a person. Who you are and what you believe about yourself, about the world, about other people. Whether you choose the manuscript or the letter, it makes you decide kind of who you are morally. So, if you're team letter, and of course I'm trying to be very unbiased about this, yes. And I know that I'm on team letter, but I think it's very indicative of who I believe I am as a person. And what I believe in as a person is that people are really doing the best that they can, that people are generally good and just doing the best that they can in the world. And I know that there are people out there who do evil things, and that there are psychopaths that, make these types of decisions, and there are serial killers, but those people are outliers. And is it possible that Verity could be that person? Absolutely. But I think in the end, what you're looking at is, who are you? And that's the truth that we're trying to get to. That's the verity of it. That's the veritas, is who are you as a person? I feel like Colleen Hoover was coming for the reader.
Yeah.
Tell me who you are. And which one you choose tells me who you are as a person. And the person, who chooses the manuscript, maybe they have darker experiences. Maybe they have seen that darkness within themselves. And they get to look at things of, like, maybe they don't trust people as much. Maybe they don't see the goodness as much in people. Maybe they are more of a cynic or, more stoic. And it's not that one is right or wrong. It's that, you get to interpret who you are as a person. So that kind of was my take on it. Just because I read so many reviews and so many people talking about it. And really, everyone made such good points. And all I could come up with at the end was, either one could be true. So why would Colleen do that? Why would she? And all I could come up with is, because she wants you to know who you are.
I thought it was a really good theory.
Yeah.
And I could even see her maybe thinking that.
It could be like, who knows?
Not, yeah.
But that's the kind of the way that I took it.
Yeah. No, and I know once you said that, I was like, holy cow. Like, that really
I just think they're both they're both plausible.
Yeah. Yeah, and which was the point too.
Yeah, I really do. I really think that's my take on it.
So
maybe Colleen Hoover can come and tell us if we're telling the truth.
You read my mind. Right? You read my mind. So Colleen, if we're right, then you have to come on the show.
Exactly.
You have to
please confirm or deny my theory.
Please, I'm a struggling writer. Please get me into your publishing company. I want to be signed. No. Anyway.
Shameless.
Always. Totally, Kyle. So, that last chapter.
Oh my God, the epilogue. I don't even know what to say.
What a ride. So, Jeremy. So, I remembered my question. I have to ask it right away.
Oh, do it, yeah.
Because, so we didn't even mention, because Patricia wasn't really a character in this book. She came up, like, I think just once, right, in the normal story.
At the grocery store.
Mm-hmm. So, and she's a friend of Verity's. And Jeremy drowns her, which,
yes,
like, I thought that ending, I thought they were talking about Lowen with the kids. I thought she was going to kill Crew.
I really did too.
And I got nervous. But my question is, do you think Jeremy had sexual relations with Patricia?
Oh.
And that's why he kept, both times he was like, Lowen, go. Like, let me take care of this. And so, and like had these private conversations. Like, was she another woman?
I definitely think that it's possible. Because if you kind of think about, so let's go on the premise.
Because why would he kill her?
Yes. Let's go on the premise that the letter is true.
Okay.
Seeing we're both team letter. And if he attempted to kill her, if Jeremy attempted to kill Verity, then he would not be loving her. He would be hating her. He would not be the doting husband that he pretended to be. He would be hating her. So I would assume that he would definitely be looking for attention elsewhere. And it's possible if she lives right in the neighborhood or whatever that they would have. And clearly he's an attractive man. Like they say that multiple times, that he's very attractive. So he certainly would be able to get someone else. So he would certainly have those needs met while still being able to keep an eye on Verity. So it's certainly possible. And he, maybe he did some stuff before Lowen got there. But I feel like, why would you kill someone unless there was something that she knew or some, do you know what I mean? Because they killed Verity.
Yeah.
So him and Lowen killed Verity and made it look like an accident. So unless there was some sort of reason, Patricia would have like some information that she shouldn't have. I don't know.
It could have been
what would be the point?
Well, another thing I just thought of, which I don't picture this being a thing. What if this is like gonna be crazy? What if like Verity sent a copy of the letter to Patricia?
Oh.
Or something. So then like she knew about.
Well, because he did send Lowen away with the kids.
Yes.
And he went back. I don't know. It's really, the whole thing is so crazy. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And boy, I'll tell you, like, it really, for me, that cemented that the letter was true.
Yeah.
Because he clearly,
I was going to ask
that
if,
was
like,
violent.
anything changed, yeah.
Because, I could almost see, like, him reading the manuscript and having that kind of reaction, to his wife. I still don't think that he should have done that, but like I could see him, having that type of reaction, and freaking out, but to then kill another person,
it makes me start thinking how much of Verity's antagonistic journaling was based off of her husband.
Yeah.
And his rage and like his I don't know.
And
that maybe she really was a good it just maybe Shirley was
that
a good person.
Epilogue was pretty crazy. And like here comes Crazy Crew again, poor kid. So he's what, like 6 now?
Yeah, I think
because he was 5. He would have been 6 because their baby is 3 months old.
Yes.
And he's like says like she's gonna die anyway, and then she's crying, and he takes her and puts her outside, like.
Which, it's.
Dude, can we get him a shrink? Like, what's happening? Like neither one of those parents are going. This is not okay.
I mean, part of me, I'm like, babies are loud. Like, I get it. He's a kid. No, but I mean, his trauma is unbearable at this point.
Yes, and I'm just saying, like, at the very least, it's not even like blaming him. I mean, he's a 6-year-old. It's not his fault. But like clearly needs some help. So it's interesting that Jeremy doesn't seem to see any of those things or want to do anything, to help him. Like Lowen had to have told him that he did these things.
I mean, I think that's because Jeremy doesn't even see issues with his actions. Like killing Verity was justified. You know?
Maybe Crew is a psychopath like Jeremy.
Oh, he's gonna
maybe Jeremy is the psychopath. And Verity is innocent. Oh, God.
Yeah, Crew already did, like, the whole, like, with the knife thing. Yeah. Not really a fun fact, but, like, a random fact. When I was a kid, I was, like, smiling and stuff and playing, and I had a pencil in my hand, and I just, like, put it right through the roof of my mouth.
Oh, my God.
So maybe, like, am I going to be a psychopath? Or is that just CPTSD?
Well, that explains so much.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
So fucked up.
So kidding! Maybe a little bit.
But like it made me when I read that part of the book, it made me think of, I was like, oh, okay, like
yeah. I mean, things can happen. I just think like there's clear warning signs, and if you had like parents that were concerned about their children, you know, I just think any parent would know if it was odd behavior like that, or like things like that happened. And of course, you know, Lowen, we see this through the eyes of Lowen. We see these things through the eyes of Lowen. And so maybe Jeremy doesn't see them and just doesn't notice. And I love every dad out there. This is not a like down on dads or anything, no. But oftentimes dads don't see things as much as moms see, or aren't as like mama bear, like on top of things as much, and don't think about it because they don't, you know, men, masculine energy and feminine energy are different. And so we don't see things the same way. And so it's entirely possible, you know, Verity wasn't able to observe those types of things. So even if she wanted to help Crew, and boy, it gives you, as a side note, gives you a little insight into maybe why Verity wanted to get Crew out of there.
That's a good point. Yeah, because, yeah.
I just think this epilogue, like, really shakes things up a lot. And it makes me kind of wonder why Colleen added it. Like, there was definitely, it seemed as if she wanted to highlight Jeremy and his piece of things, because it did feel like the book was much more centered around Verity and Lowen.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it was very balanced, and then that kind of it started to rock it a little bit or tip it.
Yeah, I do think too, like the violence of Jeremy attacking Verity was really intense in the book, and like quick and very scary. I do think the thing that's a little nuts about it is Lowen.
I was just gonna say, I mean, she just went along with that.
Yeah, I mean, if that was me, I'd be like, oh hell no! Like I'm sorry, I can't do anything. I'd be calling police.
I was gonna say we already talked about that. If I killed someone, I can't tell Shayna because she's gonna call the police.
I am not the friend to call when you've killed someone and you need help burying the body.
I am, so
yeah. So call Frank. Don't call me. Call me if you need therapy. But I can't deal with the moral guilt of it. I'd be at the police station going, I did this. I didn't do that. But I helped, and I can't. You know. I don't know if I would really do that. Although I think we all have circumstances where we would kill someone if we had to.
I hope we don't get to that point. But
that was an interesting nonsense.
Yeah, on an ending note.
Yeah, but I do think, like, you know, thinking of it from a mother's perspective, like, you know, if I found out that someone killed my child, you know, what would my reaction be? I don't know that I would kill someone, but if someone was trying to kill my child, I would kill them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because
I get it.
It's life or death, and you're going to save your child. Now, had someone done it previously and I saw them, God, I hope I never, ever have to find that out. I don't know what I would do in that instance, but I can understand Jeremy's viciousness. But this whole thing with Patricia, boy, that puts a whole new spin on it, because there has to be a reason. I think we can assume that Jeremy is not a serial killer, and it's not just a compulsion, that there was a reason for him to kill her. So maybe, I'm guessing she has some sort of...
Because then
You think he was a serial killer?
Then it really takes you back to, like, was he part of the whole thing at the beginning?
Oh, God.
Like, was it him? Oh my God! See, you were the perfect guest for this, because we're both overanalyzers.
I know.
We just think everything. Because now I'm like, oh my God! Like, I really don't know now. But
that's a really interesting. That opens a whole new can of worms.
There's too many debates
Jeremy,
now we're getting into.
Serial killer. Oh, I'd really be interested to see what other people think about that.
We need another. I know this book probably isn't even going to be a series, but it's like I need more of this story that's probably over. But now I feel like honestly, it's going up.
It could have ended without the epilogue.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, she wanted us to know about Jeremy's compulsions and kind of like what his true nature was.
Because then he choked Lowen in the shower and stuff, and I need another book so they have a fight scene.
Right?
Like I don't know. I feel like that's coming. I don't know. But anyway,
definitely got some feelings for Jeremy on the not so great level.
Not anymore. In the book, it was different, but Shayna, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
You'll have to come back.
I love books, so I'm in.
Yes, I said I have a feeling you'll be back.
Yay! So I would love to anytime.
Let's do it. So, okay. And I want to thank everyone who is listening to this episode and who ends up sharing the episode. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is the first one, and hopefully many more will happen after that. So if you want to check out my Bookstagram, that is which is a book Instagram for people who aren't familiar. It is at Franks_fiction. So make sure to follow me on that. I'm very active over there. You can go to my website, www.letmebefrankanthony.com. That has my socials, but it also has my weekly writing pieces on there. And there's poetry I have on there. I have some book reviews. My book reviews are on the Instagram. I've been posting them there. I need to start moving. What I'll probably do is, now that if this continues on podcast format, these will just be on the website as well to check out that way. But you can also check out these episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or most likely any streaming service that you check out. Also, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you can stay up to date on new episodes. And also, it would be super special awesome if you left a review on the show, because that helps it make it more discoverable. There's so many podcasts out there, and this would be really cool to get that, up in the rankings and stuff, and let other people know that it's a good show. I also have a Patreon page that is on the website, and it's also on my Bookstagram in the bio, in the little link there. So if you want to join my Patreon, there's a couple tiers for that, and you can get these episodes earlier access to them. You get the writing pieces earlier access and all that good stuff. And there'll be other stuff I'll add in there as time goes on. So I hope all of you guys have a super special, awesome day, and bye. Hey everyone, Future Frank here. So I apologize. I completely forgot to add our star ratings at the end of this episode. So Shayna's star rating was 4 out of 5 stars, and mine was 5 out of 5 stars. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to produce many, many more. Right now, the episodes, I think, are going to be once every other Thursday. So make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and loved ones. Have a super special, awesome day, and bye.